Hi family, it's Dawn with Dawn's Light and welcome to another week of Wow Wednesdays. I was thinking about hermit crabs recently. Have you ever seen them before? You can normally find them in the malls, in those big aquariums out in the kiosk with hundreds of little decorative shells laying all around. They're actual little crabs and they hide inside the shells. Or if you've ever been on a beach vacation, they're always selling them in the souvenir places. Well, a few years ago, we actually bought a couple for our boys. I thought they would make really nice gifts and pets that would be easy to maintain. And what I didn't know. So the thing about hermit crabs is, unlike regular crabs, their exoskeleton does not cover their entire body. So their underbellies are actually still quite soft, kind of like humans, soft bellies. And if left unprotected and uncovered, they can be very vulnerable to attack. Again, not unlike humans. So hermit crabs depend on the kindness of strangers. They actually search for and live in cast-off shells from snails and other little small sea creatures. And they will look for a shell that's large enough for them to completely retreat all the way into if a predator were to attack. So it needs to be snug enough to fit and they can peek out and walk around, but it also has to provide enough protection to cover them in the event of an attack. So we had our little crabs for a little while and we got to see them kind of change shells. And the thing with hermit crabs is so strange. When they grow, they actually shed their exoskeleton. So they molt, right? Which means they're going to be completely exposed and all their little skin, like little baby skin, is going to be exposed and they could be easily attacked. So when they're going to grow, they will come out of the house, the shell that they're living in, and they'll dig down into the sand and bury themselves and then allow their external skeleton to kind of shed. They're exposed for about a week, maybe a little longer, while their exoskeleton, the new one, hardens up. And then they come back out and they walk around and they find a new shell to live in. Okay? We got to see this a couple of times with our boys, hermit crabs. But they're picky about the shells that they live in. And it's got to fit all the right parameters. It's got to provide them with the kind of covering that they really are going to feel protected in. So after a couple of times of exchanging shells, we had one of our hermit crabs who actually came out of the shell that he had been living in and went down into the earth or the sand, where I assume he was molting. But then when he came up, he just walked around the aquarium. And we would see it just running around the aquarium, like freaking out, panicked, all naked and exposed. And it would never go into a new shell. And we couldn't imagine why. I kept buying different ones. There were many available. It wouldn't even go back into the one it had come out of. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out why. And so eventually that hermit crab died, I guess from exposure. Well, although it was hard to say goodbye to the crabs, which, let me tell you, my boys did not even realize that the thing had died, okay, until I told them. And before any of you pet lovers go blaming me for not providing the proper conditions for this hermit crab, let me just let you know that I had fed this thing, had provided the proper light, had given all the food, everything that I could to make a very conducive, healthy living situation. Although I thought that thing was hairy and weird and I got a little tired of taking care of it, I did everything I could to provide a good home. But that crab refused to go into a new shell. And so once it died, I got to thinking, wow, how can that relate? It completely related to me. And I think it will relate to you too. You see, God, like the hermit crab and all living things, wants us all to grow. And we have to be able and willing to grow and change. You see, in 2 Peter, I'm looking at the scripture here, in 2 Peter 5, Peter tells us that God has given us everything we need to live a godly life and to escape the pain that comes from giving in to our own evil desires. And then it lists things that we need to add to our faith in order to grow to keep us from becoming ineffective and unproductive. Growth. You see, growth and change are scary and painful, but I learned from those hermit crabs that resistance leads to death. You see, in Ephesians 4:22, the word says that you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. That's change. Growth and change. God kind of requires for all of us. And we've got to do that if we want to continue living in this world. You see, in order to do that, we have to expose ourselves, become vulnerable, and be willing to move into a new covering that's going to provide us with the proper protection and living environment that we need. Like a hermit crab, if you're still living in that old tight shell, I want you to take a look around at everything that God has made available to you and consider it just might be time for you to move. I got that from the hermit crabs. I hope it presented a wow moment for you today. Enjoy and stay tuned. Come back next week for another wow moment. If you haven't liked or subscribed, you can't do it while it's here on the YouTube, or on the Facebook page. But go over to my YouTube link. Just put in my name, Dawn Runyon, and you'll find my Wow Wednesdays. Click subscribe there on YouTube so you can get all the updates and all the upcoming information that I'll be bringing to you. There's some new things in the air and a lot of things in the works. So, again, tune in next week for Wow Wednesdays. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.